The first time I caught Barbara Hendricks trying to peek through my windows, I thought maybe I was being paranoid. The second time, I knew I wasn't. By the fifth time, I was ready to set a trap. My name is David Martinez, and I'd made a mistake of buying a townhouse in Sunset Ridge, a cookie-cutter HOA community in suburban Phoenix, where conformity wasn't just encouraged, it was enforced with an iron fist. And wielding the iron fist was Barbara Hendricks, HOA President, self-appointed neighborhood watchdog, and the woman who'd made my life a living hell for the past 8 months. It started small. A warning letter about my trash cans being visible from the street for 20 minutes after collection. A citation because my doormat was burgundy instead of the approved earth tones. A formal complaint because I'd planted petunias in my front flower bed instead of the pre-approved list of drought-resistant plants. But then it escalated. I'd come home to find her standing on my porch, peering through my front window with her hands cupped around her eyes. When I confronted her, she claimed she was ensuring compliance with interior lighting standards, whatever that meant. Another time, I caught her try my door handle to see if it was locked, claiming she needed to verify occupancy status for HOA records. The woman was obsessed. She's definitely violating your privacy. My friend Marcus said when I told him about it over beers. Marcus was a police officer with the Phoenix PD, and he'd heard his share of HOA horror stories. But unless she actually enters your home or damages something, it's hard to get charges to stick. What if she does enter? I asked. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Then it's criminal trespassing, burglary, or breaking and entering, depending on the circumstances. Why? You think she'd actually go that far? I thought about the gleam in Barbara's eyes when she tried my door handle, the way she justified every invasion of my privacy as HOA business. The fact that she'd started carrying around what looked like a master key on a lanyard around her neck. Yeah, I said slowly. I think she would. That's when Marcus and I hatched our plan. 2 weeks later, I installed a smart lock on my front door, one that logged every time someone attempted to use a key or entered a code. I also installed security cameras covering my front door, back door, and several interior rooms, all streaming to my phone and cloud storage. Everything was legal. Everything was on my property, and everything was ready to catch Barbara in the act. Then I baited the trap. I filed a formal complaint with the HOA about Barbara's harassment, knowing it would infuriate her. I made sure to be seen leaving for work every morning at exactly 7:45 a.m., establishing a predictable routine. And then, on a Wednesday morning, I called in sick to work, parked my car at Marcus's house 2 streets over, and snuck back into my own home through the back door. Marcus met me there, along with his partner, Officer Chun. They were both off duty, but willing to be witnesses if my hunch proved correct. You really think she'll try it? Officer Chun asked, settling into a chair in my living room where she'd be hidden from the front door. I bet money on it, I replied, checking my phone. The security camera feeds were all working perfectly. She's been escalating for weeks. Yesterday, she left a note on my door saying she needed to conduct an emergency interior inspection due to reports of code violations. I never responded. What code violations? Marcus asked. Imaginary ones. But that's her justification. She thinks she has a right to enter any property in the HOA for inspections. We waited and waited. I was starting to think I'd miscalculated when at 9:23 a.m., my phone buzzed with an alert from my front door camera. There she was. Barbara Hendricks stood on my porch, looking left and right like a cartoon burglar checking for witnesses. She was wearing her usual uniform, a pale pink velvet tracksuit, white tennis shoes, and a visor with HOA President embroidered on it in gold thread. Around her neck hung the lanyard with multiple keys. I held up my phone so Marcus and Officer Chun could see the feed. We watched as Barbara knocked on my door, a perfunctory, barely there knock designed to satisfy some internal checklist rather than actually announce her presence. She waited maybe 5 seconds. Then she pulled out her keys. Here we go, Marcus whispered. My smart locks log showed the exact moment, 9:24 and 17 seconds a.m. Someone inserted a key that matched my lock's profile. The deadbolt disengaged. The handle turned. And Barbara Hendricks walked into my home without permission, without a warrant, and without any legal authority whatsoever. Unbelievable, Officer Chen breathed. We stayed silent as Barbara stepped into my entryway, closing the door behind her. She stood there for a moment, looking around my living room with an expression of smug satisfaction. Then she pulled out her phone and started taking pictures. "Mr. Martinez?" she called out, her voice echoing through the house. "This is Barbara Hendricks from the HOA. I'm conducting a mandatory inspection. If you're home, please make yourself known." She waited about 3 seconds, clearly not expecting an answer, then started walking through my living room, photographing everything. My bookshelf, my entertainment center, my coffee table with yesterday's mail still scattered across it. "Unauthorized cable routing," she muttered, taking a photo of my TV cables. "Non-compliant window treatments." She photographed my curtains. "Excessive personal items creating visual clutter." She photographed my couch with its throw pillows. She was building a case. A completely fabricated, absolutely illegal case to justify her harassment. That's when Marcus stood up. "Phoenix Police," he said calmly, his badge already in his hand. "Put your phone down and keep your hands where I can see them." The color drained from Barbara's face so fast I thought she might faint. Her phone clattered to my hardwood floor. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Officer Chen emerged from the other side of the room, also displaying her badge. "Ma'am, you need to stay exactly where you are." I'm the HOA President," Barbara stammered, her voice suddenly small and uncertain. "I have authority to—" "You have no authority to enter someone's home without permission," Marcus interrupted. "That's breaking and entering. You're under arrest." "But I have a key," Barbara protested, holding up her lanyard. "I'm allowed to—" "Where did you get that key?" I asked, stepping out from the kitchen doorway. Barbara's eyes went wide when she saw me. You're supposed to be at work. So you were watching my schedule. That's called stalking." I walked closer, my phone in hand with the video evidence still recording. "Where did you get the key to my house, Barbara?" She looked between me, Marcus, and Officer Chun, clearly trying to calculate her way out of this. The HOA has master keys to all properties for emergencies." "Really? Show me that in the HOA bylaws." Silence. Because I've read them cover to cover, I continued. "There's no provision for master keys. There's no provision for unannounced inspections. And there's definitely no provision for the HOA president to let herself into residents' homes to take pictures of their throw pillows." Marcus pulled out his handcuffs. "Barbara Hendricks, you're under arrest for criminal trespassing and breaking and entering. You have the right to remain silent." As he read her rights, Barbara started crying. Not quiet, dignified tears, but loud, heaving sobs. "This is a mistake. I was trying to help the community. The HOA board authorized this." "Did they?" Officer Chen asked. "We'll need to see documentation of that authorization." Barbara's face went even paler. After she was cuffed and placed in Marcus's car. Yes, he brought an official vehicle just in case. I sat down on my couch and tried to process what had just happened. Officer Chen stayed behind to take my official statement. "How did she get the key?" Chen asked. "I'm not sure, but I have a theory." I pulled up my smart locks log and scrolled back through the history. Look at this. 3 weeks ago, there was an attempted entry at 3:47 a.m. The lock registered someone trying to read the internal mechanisms, probably trying to make an impression or a copy. She made a copy of your key? That would be my guess. Probably hired a locksmith and claimed she was locked out of her own property, or something. Chin shook her head. This woman has serious problems. How long has this harassment been going on? I showed her my folder of documentation. 8 months of letters, citations, photographs, and notes about Barbara's escalating behavior. The window peeping, the door handle testing, the invasive questions about my work schedule. Everything carefully documented with dates, times, and evidence. You built a solid case, Chin said approvingly. Most people don't think to document this stuff until it's too late. I learned from the best, I said, nodding toward where Marcus had been standing. The fallout was swift and satisfying. Barbara was charged with criminal trespassing, breaking and entering, and stalking. Her lawyer tried to argue that she believed she had authority as HOA president, but the prosecutor demolished that defense by showing that Barbara had never presented any such policy to the HOA board, and in fact, the board members were horrified to learn what she'd been doing. The trial was short. My security footage was devastating. The smart lock logs proved exactly when she'd entered. Her own photos, taken inside my home without permission, sealed her fate. She was convicted on all counts. But the criminal case was only the beginning. I filed a civil lawsuit against both Barbara personally and the HOA for harassment, invasion of privacy, and emotional distress. During discovery, my attorney uncovered something stunning. Barbara had been entering multiple homes in the subdivision without permission, always targeting people who challenged her authority or filed complaints against her. She'd made copies of keys for at least 6 different properties. She conducted inspection of people's homes while they were at work, sometimes moving things around or leaving notes about violations she'd observed. One resident thought she was losing her mind because items kept being rearranged. It was Barbara gaslighting her through illegal break-ins. The HOA board was appalled. They immediately fired Barbara, revoked her access to all HOA systems, and issued a formal apology to every resident she targeted. They also agreed to settle my lawsuit for $75,000 and implement new policies to prevent any future abuse of power. But the best moment came 3 months later, when I was at the mailboxes and saw the moving truck outside Barbara's townhouse. She was being forced to sell. Part of her plea agreement included a restraining order keeping her away from Sunset Ridge. As I watched her furniture being loaded, Barbara's husband approached me. He was a quiet man I'd only met once before, and he looked exhausted. "Mr. Martinez," he said quietly, "I want to apologize for my wife's behavior. She's getting help. Therapy, medication. We didn't realize how bad things had gotten." I nodded. "I hope she gets better." "I really do. But what she did was criminal, and she needed to face consequences." "I know." He looked back at the moving truck. "For what it's worth, you probably saved her from doing something even worse." She was spiraling, and nobody could get through to her. Maybe this would be the wake-up call she needed. After they left, the HOA held a special election for a new president. The winner was Tom Chun, no relation to Officer Chun, a retired accountant who immediately implemented transparency measures and resident rights protections. He personally apologized to me at his first board meeting. What Barbara did was inexcusable, Tom said to the assembled residents. This HOA exists to maintain property values and ensure everyone can enjoy their homes in peace. It does not exist to invade privacy, harass residents, or abuse power. Those days are over. The community applauded. 6 months later, I was finally able to relax in my own home without constantly checking my security cameras. My burgundy doormat remained on my porch. My petunias bloomed beautifully, and my door stayed locked, secure, and accessible only to people I actually invited inside. Sometimes I think about that moment when Barbara walked through my door and saw police officers waiting, the look of absolute shock on her face, the sudden realization that her reign of terror was over. Power, even the petty power of an HOA presidency, can corrupt people. But justice, real justice, is watching that power crumble when someone finally stands up and says, "Not in my home." Barbara learned that lesson the hard way. And I learned that sometimes the best defense is a well-planned trap, good documentation, and friends in the right places.